and welcome to the Times of Industry show. I am having a special edition. Listen, whatever you're doing, just throw away your phone for 30 minutes, put it on the side. You have to listen to the following story. I am not kidding you. This is the most remarkable life story you'll see and hear about this year. You'll probably spend the next 24 hours just surfing the web, Googling Michael, because this person is an unbelievable story. If you haven't, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I will now give the platform for 10 minutes to Michael so he can share exactly what happened to him since he arrived on this planet. Literally unbelievable. But Michael, please, thank you very much for joining us, of course, and I want you to take the floor, please.
My pleasure, and you've certainly pumped the tires up way too much, mate, but it's a real privilege and an honor to have the opportunity to share a little of my journey. When I was 11 months old, I went to the doctors with my mum and my sister. My sister had an ear infection, and I'm much more of a hugger. I don't really do the handshake thing. I give the doctor a big hug, and his knee brushes my stomach. He thinks that doesn't feel right. I'm taken to my local hospital. I'm then airlifted that night to Sydney Hospital. And the following morning, I was diagnosed with an incurable cancer of the central nervous system called neuroblastoma stage 4. The doctor said there was no chance of survival. Take your little boy home and allow him to live the next few months with his family because there's nothing that we can do. But like everybody listening, everybody on this planet, we all have choices. And the choices that we make each and every day can help reshape, remold, and redefine our future. And I'm so fortunate my mum asked one question, and that was, I don't want to know what the chances are of my son dying. I just want to know what the chances are of my son surviving. The doctor said that I had a 96% death rate, and don't put your little boy through that sort of pain. But fortunately enough, my mum chose to look at my life not being 96% empty. She chose to look at my life being 4% full. And I think how often do we all as human beings look at the bottle being half empty as opposed to half full? And I'm so blessed that she chose to look at my life being 4% full. I started chemotherapy on my first birthday. My chemo cycle was 9 days on, 3 days off. 9 days on, 3 days off, not for weeks, not for months, but for years. I was on that same cycle until my 4th birthday when a doctor came in and said to my mum, Kerry, we're sorry, the treatment's no longer doing the job. The tumor has built a resistance. It's now taken over half of your son's body. It's growing up into his aorta. It's crushing his spine. It's wrapping around his heart. We need to go into surgery. I went into surgery. And 6 hours later, the doctors came out and said to my mum, we're sorry, we didn't get it all. There's now nothing that we can do. And that was when my dad and my 3 older sisters, they were flown from Coffs Harbour down to Sydney, and they came into my room to say goodbye. But we were very lucky that there was an American doctor. He was trialing a test drug. He was going to trial that drug on 25 patients. He had 24 candidates, and he wondered whether we wanted to be number 25. And I really believe that outside of love, hope is one of the most powerful words in the English dictionary. And by this doctor giving us this opportunity, it instilled our hearts and our minds and our souls with hope. We started that drug at 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning with 24 other families. Within 1 day, unfortunately, we were all transferred from the oncology ward to the burns unit. The after effects of the drug were so bad that we were completely covered from head to toe in blisters. They would wrap us up in bandages and lie us in baths full of ice, trying to prevent our brains from frying. But unfortunately, within 30 days, 20 out of the 25 of us on that drug had sadly passed away. The second month of that drug began to burn my internal organs. I lost one of my lungs, my liver and my kidney were destroyed. The muscles around my heart began to deteriorate. But I say that I'm one of the luckiest people on the face of the earth, and I was the only one that survived that drug. 24 out of 25 of them had passed away. And I never say that I'm one of the lucky ones because I'm still here. I say I'm one of the lucky ones because I wasn't my mum. My mum was the one that had it tough. She had to inject a drug into a child that's killed every single person that ever taken it. She had to go to death counseling for 2 hours every week to deal with what was going to happen to a little boy. And I just think the courage and the strength and the resilience that she has shown throughout my entire life, I am forever grateful. Unfortunately, from that drug, there was a lot of after effects and a lot of impact. The doctor said I would never go to school, I'd never play sport, I'd be a housebound baby, and if I reached my teenage years, it'll be a miracle. My mum come through the curtains, and I made out I didn't hear what the doctor said. I said, what did the doctor say? And she said, oh, the doctors told me that everything was going to be okay. And I think that reflecting back on that time in my life, my mum carried the fear and the burden of her son dying because she wanted me to lead a normal life. She told me I needed to have a dream, and I had a dream. I wanted to be normal like everybody else. I wanted to go to school. I wanted to make friends. But most of all, I really wanted to one day play baseball in America. And people laughed at my dreams. And I realized that no one in your life is ever going to tell you what you can do. They'll only ever tell you what you can't do. And it's your choice whether you choose to listen to that. Fast forward a lot to the age of 12. I was starting to get really good at baseball. I represented my town and my state. 1 week before we flew out to the national championships, I got really sick. I got glandular fever, then I got the chicken pox, then I got the belly bug, then I got pneumonia, and then all of a sudden my whole world changed. And from the after effects of that drug, at the age of 12, I suffered my first major heart attack. I was in hospital for 4 months. I became a depressed little boy. And then I heard the doctors say to my mum, "Kerry, your son's heart is so badly damaged that he will never be able to play sport again." And I remember my mum walked through the curtains and I said, "What did the doctors say?" And she said, "Oh, the doctors told me that everything was going to be okay." She believed in me. And I think that in life, we just need one person to believe in us for us to be able to achieve our dreams. And I realized that some people on this planet don't have anybody that believe in them. And as long as that person looks back at us when we brush our teeth of a morning, as long as that person believes in us, it's remarkable what we can achieve. Fortunate enough, 2 years later, I was playing baseball, loving life, and made the under-16 Australian Expos baseball team. I flew to America. I got a chance to achieve my dreams. I played over there when I was 14, 15, 16, 17, signed a full-ride scholarship to live in America and play baseball when I was 17. Unfortunately, the health suffered dramatically when I was over there. My heart couldn't compete. My health was deteriorating. I lost my contract. I got sent home, and I never played baseball in America again. But I really, I got a chance to achieve my dreams. I got a chance to do something that people told me all my life I'd never be able to do. I came back. I got a job in the banking world, and I worked my way up the corporate ladder very quickly. Within 5 years, I went from a teller at the front counter of a bank to one of the youngest national sales development managers for one of the largest companies in the world. We had 600 staff, 120 banks around Australia and New Zealand. I reported directly to the CEO. But I was driven by the 3 Ps that destroy people. I was driven by power, privileges, and possessions. I had to have the multi-million-dollar house. I had to have the $100,000 sports car and the Armani suits. I had to create the perception of what I thought success was. And it took me to hit rock bottom in 2008 for my whole world to change. And my mum and dad, they separated. I invested all of my mum's money because there wasn't as much money as what we were hoping to get from the settlement to be able to buy her a house. So I thought the investment will be able to get us a decent return. And from that, she'll be able to put a roof over her head. And I invested all of my mum's money about 6 weeks before the GFC hit. I lost all of my mum's money. I failed her. I failed my mum. I failed my family. And it was because of my ego and arrogance that destroyed my mum's life. I had to put her in a trailer in a caravan park. And I became a very ashamed man. And I was so disappointed in who I had become. And it was because of my ego and arrogance. It was because of my greed. It was because of me trying to create something that really wasn't all that important. And that was the materialistic wealth that I thought was really and truly important. And I hit rock bottom. I got bacterial meningitis. I got fluid on the brain. I had Bell's palsy. It's like a stroke down the right-hand side of my body. And I decided to quit. I remember every night my wife would come into hospital and she would say, "I love you," and I'd say in the morning. And I would say, "I love you," and goodbye. Because every night she would leave the hospital room. I would lie in bed and I'd just pray to God that I wouldn't wake up. I just had enough of fighting. And every day I was in hospital, I started to get greater clarity in understanding what was really important. And I realized that all I needed to do was master 2 things and my whole world had changed. The first thing I needed to master was what success was. And now I understand that success is not about how big my house is. Success is about how big my heart is. Success is about getting out of bed every single day and knowing in my heart that I can make a difference in somebody else's life. And the other thing I needed to understand and master was the gift of giving. Because for me, for a long time, I always thought the saying was, the more you give, the more you shall receive. But I realized that saying is wrong. The saying should be, the more you give expecting nothing in return, the more you shall receive. And that's when I decided to walk away from the corporate world. I had a goal and a dream to make a global impact. I started down the humanitarian space. I aligned myself with a whole heap of charities and then realized that so many people were donating so much money to charity and so much of it was getting eaten up in admin fees and CEO fees and staffing costs. So we decided to start our own orphanage and start our own school and open our own charity. So we went to Haiti, where an earthquake hit there in 2010, killed 316,000 people. And we wanted to make sure that if you were going to donate $1, that every cent of that dollar was going to make it there. We're one of less than 1% of charities in the world where every cent gets sent. Now we've got 270 children at our school, 41 children at our orphanage. And it was a real dream come true to be able to give back and serve these beautiful kids. And then 2016, things were going great. My speaking career started to go nuts. I did a lot of different TV shows in America and here in Australia. And then I was finally in a position to be able to do something I wanted to do for so long, and that was to put a pink ribbon on a new door to a new home for my beautiful mum. And to be able to give back to her was one of the greatest days of my life. And it was that day I realized that it's far greater to give than to receive. But unfortunately, my health, as you know, deteriorated again. And late that year, the doctors unfortunately found 4 tumors in my throat. They told me my tomorrows weren't guaranteed and I needed to slow down. I postponed surgery just long enough so I could finish writing my autobiography, which is called Kids Don't Get Cancer, which is now a bestseller in 6 countries around the world. And the plan was to use that book as a legacy to be able to give back to my family after I was gone. But fortunately, the surgery went well. They got rid of 3 out of the 4 tumors. And now I donate every cent from my book to charity. We've been able to donate nearly $350,000 to charity over the last few years. And I feel so fortunate to A, still be here, but B, be able to leave a legacy and live into my legacy by striving to serve as many people as I can every single day. And the speaking stuff's gone crazy now. I've shared the stage with Sir Richard Branson. I'm about to get on tour with Tony Robbins as his closing speaker. One of my videos has gone viral. It's hit 60 million views online. But for me, I'm just a very humble Australian man who's been incredibly blessed to still be here, that has taken my fair share of kicks, but extremely grateful to be getting up every single day and knowing in my heart that the quality of one's life is not dictated, nor is it determined by the amount of days that we live on this earth. It's about what we fit into those days that allows us to live a remarkable life. So there is my life in a nutshell.
Michael, for some reason, 3 or 4 minutes ago, you switched to audio. Okay, there you go. You're back on video. My God, I mean, I don't know even where to start. It's such an incredible story, and I want to ask you some very tough questions, I guess, because your story is so unique. I mean, I want to start off with, what do you think your mother's main characteristic was to get through this journey? Was she as successful in other parts of her life? Was she focused solely on being a mother? Can you give people sort of an understanding of who your mother is? Because that sort of faith and hope and relentlessness is it's incredible.
My mum came from a very broken, very poor, very challenged upbringing. And I think that there are 2 types of people in the world. There are those that use their adversity, pain, and suffering as the justification behind why they fail. And there are those that use the exact same pain and suffering as the motivation to succeed. And I think that she's the perfect living role model and example of that. She has been to hell and back, yet she just strives to get out of bed and fight every day. And she just had that inner desire and that strength and that tenacity to never give up on a little boy. And, I think that optimism and resilience and courage are 3 words that certainly come to mind. She's not successful in the corporate world. She's never had a real job as such, but she's a remarkable role model for so many people around the world now. And I think that if I can just have an ounce of her courage and her wisdom and her strength, regardless of the challenges that I go through, then I think that I will certainly be the best man that I possibly can be whilst on this earth.
Are you currently in any sort of medical process? Or are you out of the woods as we speak, during this interview? Are you completely healthy? What is your current situation, if I may ask?
Yeah, so in 2016, they removed 3 out of the 4 tumors in my throat. So there's still 1 in there. And unfortunately, there's some issues with my heart. I've got a very low immune system. So every day for me really is a bonus. And I am just so grateful every morning that I get a chance to get out of bed and put my feet on the ground. And when I put my left foot down, I say thank you. And, when I put my right foot down, I'm just incredibly grateful I get to bounce out of bed. And I think that it takes, sadly, it takes a lot of pain and a lot of suffering for people to wake up to themselves and realize how lucky they are to have what they have. And I think the more that we can understand that there are people in this world that would do anything to have your bad day, that's when we start to look at our life a little bit differently. And I know that it's not the adversity in our life that defines us, it's how we deal with it. And for me, that injection of optimism and resilience that she's instilled in my life at such a young age, I think continues to flow on to me now as a man. And, I know that when my time is up on this earth, my tank is going to be on empty. There's going to be nothing left in the reserve tank. And I think that that's how we should really live our life. This is not a dress rehearsal. And I'm a guy that's never going to live any day like it's a dress rehearsal. I know this is my one and only shot. And I know that when I do finally get to that resting place, I'm going to live a life that is free of regrets. And I think that that's so important in the world that we live right now.
Michael, if there's any sort of a comparison between my life, I've been completely healthy all my life. My heritage is Jewish, and I remember that when my grandfather told me about the war and about the Second World War, the Holocaust, he said that many of the Jewish heritage lost all of their faith. They were like, how can this have happened to us? They blamed, God or whatever you want to call it for not intervening or for punishing them. If you've gone through these sort of mental, inner spiritual cycles where you're like, why do I deserve, why is this happening to me? Is this happening to me? Is this a personal thing? Is this random? Where is the role of faith in all of this? Or is this luck? Is this bad luck? What is this? Is this a lesson? All of these questions I assume you've had because,
many times.
Yes. Can you, many people go through them. They don't have to have cancer. They can have a tire go bad and they're like, man, I missed my meeting. Everything is gone because of a little tire. Now the tow person is late and blah, blah, blah. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because what I want
Absolutely.
people to get is how to deal with it.
Yeah, perspective is such a powerful thing, right? And one of my most favorite sayings is that I cried when I didn't get a new pair of shoes until I saw a boy that had no feet. Sometimes when we compare our adversities and our challenges, our pain and suffering to other people, we quickly begin to realize how lucky we are to have what we have. And I know that I've been to hell and back many times. And there have been many times in my life where I've questioned my faith and why me and how many times do I need to get kicked? But I realized for me and my faith is that those times that I was really feeling like I was all alone, they weren't my footprints in sand. I was being carried through those times. And I think that the more that we can actually take on that proactive outlook on life and realize that, our life could be so much worse than what it really is. I think that that's when we begin to appreciate the finer things in life. We begin to count our blessings and not our problems. And, for me, that's why I'm really grateful. I've been sick all my life, so I've never sweat the small stuff. I've never complained when it was raining or when it was hot. I never complained when there was traffic or when my plane was delayed. Maybe a couple of times that my plane's delayed. 178 flights last year, so maybe I complained a little bit. But, I think that when we face our first world problems and realize that they are exactly that, first world problems, we quickly begin to shift our mindset, and that's when we start to become the best version of ourselves. And that's why I'm just so grateful to live the life I have been able to live, because I've lived them each day to the fullest with optimism and resilience and congruency and integrity and a great sense of gratitude every morning that I wake up. And that's an amazing way to live your life.
Okay. So there are 7 primal fears, and the mother of all fears for every individual is the fear of death. Can everybody dies.
Mhm.
Everybody, that's the last station for everyone. But you have had to deal with it in a much more vivid way than anyone else. Um, is there almost an advantage to this? Do you feel that it's even it makes your life more valuable? How do you deal with death? How do you deal
Yeah,
with the notion of this?
I don't know whether it makes your life feel more valuable, but I think that it certainly allows you to deal with fearful situations with a lot greater amounts of peace. And I think that that's been a great advantage for me over the many years and the many times that I've been given an end date. And I think that when you're at peace with who you are, the impact that you can have, the lives that you get to touch, the positivity that you try and bring to the world, I think that that's when you're really in a place where it's almost like all the dots are starting to align for you. And I really think that our blueprint is set out before us. We just need to walk into that place. And I'm sure that many people listening, there's been times in their life where you go, you know what, I'm exactly where I need to be right now. And I think that the more we have that comfort in knowing that what will be will be, yes, we can avoid situations that are going to cause us great fear and anxiety and pain. But I think that when we're really congruent with what our heart is and what our message is and what our values and what our visions are, I think that that's when we start to eradicate fear, have faith in our hearts. And I'm not necessarily talking about Christianity or whatever faith might be. I'm just having faith within ourselves, faith with who we are and the impact that we can have. And I think that's really important to have that at the center of everything we do and everything we are.
Okay. Two questions that I think are really important. Do you believe that there was a placebo effect also in your entire recovery? Because the power of the within, the power of your own mental hopes, and do you feel that they were even more important than the actual chemicals or whatever was used, the drugs, etc., in curing because so many people do not get cured of this, and there's a big debate on our own power to impact our nervous system, our immune system, our entire bodies.
Yep.
Um, you know, you're a miracle. Can you share the inner side of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the power of the mind is one of the most incredible things that so many people do not harness and do not leverage off. In fact, over the last few years, I've been designing an online training program that does exactly that. It gives them the understanding of how powerful that mind is. And I really believe that without the mental strength and capabilities that were instilled in my life at such a young age, and then continually harnessing and developing and growing that throughout my life, there is no way in the world that I would be here, regardless of chemicals, regardless of science, regardless of luck, regardless of faith. I think that to have that optimistic outlook on life, to be resilient, to be courageous, it's incredible what we can get through. And I've seen it firsthand from so many people that have been sick for a long period of time, and they just stay optimistic and resilient and they fight through it. And then all of a sudden they go and get it checked and they realize that it's a tumor, and they say, you know, you're not going to be able to make Christmas. And this is in February. And then all of a sudden in March, they're dead because they convince themselves that they are really sick and they die. And I think it works exactly the opposite way as well. You know, you tell me I'm not going to make it to Christmas. Well, you've told me that many, many times before. And I'm not working hard to prove you wrong. I'm working really hard to prove myself right. And I think that there's a big disparity between the two. And I absolutely agree with you, mate. The power of the mind is such a remarkable thing. And when we begin to control it and begin to understand it, it's truly amazing what we can overcome and what we can achieve in our life.
You've spent so many hours with yourself on hospital beds, wherever else. How much time do you spend just thinking, sitting there thinking, contemplating things through throughout the day? Many people live for 24 hours. They sleep for 8. They're awake for 16, and they're on something sort of an automatic routine. And I wonder, how important is it in that routine to have sessions of deep thinking with yourself, align yourself, just like a piano gets aligned every 2-3 months or something back to its optimal conditions. Not specifically talking about meditation or something, but just thinking, sitting there, working things through. Is that a big part of your life? And do you think it's a big part of people that are successful? Thinking, sitting
Massive.
there? Okay. Well,
Yeah, massive. I've been lucky enough to work with some of the highest paid CEOs, some of the highest paid professional athletes. I've worked with troops in Iraq fighting for our freedom. I've been lucky to work with some really amazing people, and there's many disparities between the two, but there's some things that are really connected that they all do. And the one thing that they do is meditate. So for me, that's been a huge game changer for me. I have a non-negotiable routine every day, and it's activation, meditation, appreciation. They're the 3 steps that, I talk about a lot in my training program, but this is exactly what I try and live my life by. And that's what I need to do. People do this because they want to perform at their optimal level. I do it because I want to stay alive. I want to have more of an impact. So the activation for me is getting some exercise, going for a run, going for a swim, whatever it might be that interests you to get the heart pumping. The second thing for me is meditation. I think meditation is for me a reboot and a recharge. I think that over night time we go to bed, we have a sleep, we wake up and we get on with our day and we think that we've recharged overnight. But for my analogy I like to use, it's like my mobile phone. I go to bed of a night time, I turn my phone off, I wake up in the morning, I turn it back on. Did it recharge overnight? No. The only way it's going to recharge overnight is if I plug it in. So my plug-in mechanism is to meditate, and that's been a real game changer for me. And then the last one is appreciation, and that's around the whole gratitude piece. I want to identify every day verbally and written the 3 things that I'm truly grateful for. And I think that when we start to live our life with that mind frame of peace and clarity, but also gratitude, I think that that's when we can really, really harness what it is to be alive and the impact that we can have whilst we're still here. So activation, meditation, appreciation, they're my 3 things that I must do every day to keep me going.
Michael, what is next for you? You've now become a best-selling author. You do speaking engagements around the world. I can only assume you mentor people also one-on-one, as you said. What's next on your plate? What are you dreaming about next? I know you've recently also become a family person, a family man. Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah, my goal was about 4 years ago was to be a dad. That was my dream, and we were told we'd never be able to have kids because of my health challenges, and that's one of the reasons why we really delved in and opened an orphanage in Haiti, because we wanted to be able to be parents. We tried to adopt, but unfortunately we couldn't do that. But in 2017, we were lucky enough to announce to the world that we were expecting a baby after many years of IVF, and our baby was due the end of February 2018, but on the 8th of December at 29 weeks, my wife had a lot of back pain. We were taken to hospital, and she was 2 centimeters dilated. So we were very, very worried. We were flown down to Sydney, and 4 days later, our little boy arrived into the world. We had a beautiful little boy named Lachlan James. He weighed 2 pounds. He was very, very, very unwell. He was taken to intensive care unit level 3, where they weren't sure whether he was going to make it. But every day he seemed to get stronger and stronger. And after 4 weeks, they told us we could fly back to our local hospital, where he would spend the next 6 to 8 weeks before we're allowed to take him home. But on the way home, he seemed to not be so well. And that night, the doctors called us, told us to come back into the hospital. And they told us that our little boy had contracted an illness called sepsis, a blood disease. They told us that that they believe that we probably had 4 days with him, and that we should get ready to say our goodbyes. And we were airlifted back to Sydney Hospital, and I watched a man resuscitate my little boy on the plane. And it was the first time that I walked a day in my mum's shoes. It was the first time I felt what real pain was. And I realized very quickly that it was so much easier lying in the bed than standing next to it. And I remember just praying out aloud, saying, "Take my house, take my car, take every asset, take everything I own, but please don't take my little boy. And I think, why do we wait until it's too late before we decide to change? Why do we wait until we're diagnosed with lung cancer before we stop smoking? Or we wait until we're diagnosed with diabetes before we decide to change our diet? Or we wait until we lose someone that we love before we tell them that we love them? But my little boy, he didn't want to listen to what they had to say, and he kept fighting every day. And after a week, we captured his first little smile. And I think that was the first day that I really believed that everything was going to be okay. And now he turned 2 in December, and he's just the most beautiful little boy. And I'm just so grateful that he's still here. And, my goal, what's next, to your question, is, I want to be the dad that my father was never to me. I want to be the dad that is always at my son's practice, and he gets a chance to take him to school every day. And I want my son to say that he's proud to call me his dad. So for me, that's really what's next. I want to inject so much love and time and energy into that beautiful little miracle that I call my son, and make sure that I live my life free of regrets, and I really understand what my why is now, and it's to be the best dad that I possibly can be.
Your story resonates so much with my own. We have a little daughter. She's 3.5. So full-time dad is definitely something that has become one of the crown jewels of my life. Instead of being like a weekend dad, or a dad that has to finance the family all the time, and he's not really a dad; he's just a provider. Where can people learn more about everything that you're? Are you active on social media as well? Can people follow your life closer? I know about the book, and we'll have a description in the description box below for Kids Don't Get Cancer, with the Amazon link, your speaking engagements. Obviously, if you come to Israel, we'll treat you like king. You should come with your wife and your lucky son, and we'll show you lucky from our southern border to our northern border. You'll see how unlucky some people get to live their lives here.
Yeah, I hear you.
But in the center, it's a paradise here in Tel Aviv. So you're welcome here. And
thank you, mate. Thank you. But no, I'm on everything. I'm on Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook. I've got live videos that go up all the time. I've got my online training program that's on my website, The Power of the Mind and Becoming the Best Version of Yourself. And obviously my book is on my website as well. If you buy it from my website, all the money goes to charity. If you buy it from Amazon, then $28 goes to Amazon, and I think 19 cents goes to my orphanage. So make sure you get it from get it from my website. That'd
no,
awesome.
100%. So it's what you're saying is it's better to go on the website, buy 20 books. I'm sorry, the other way around. If you go to Amazon, you buy 20 books, then it's like buying one book from Michael.
That's right,
Crossland. So much better. We'll have the description in the description box below. We'll have it to your own website. I really appreciate everything that you're doing for the rest of the world. Your story could have stayed your own. Nobody would have heard about it. Nobody would have known about it. And it would be such a disservice because you project what a man should be in our planet. Someone who has been dealt all the wrong cards, but is not only here, he's grateful. He's built a life, a career, a family, and he's just rocking it. And my God, it's one of the most incredible stories that I've ever heard. And hopefully we'll get to shake hands one day. Michael, if you can, would you please tell people how they can go to your website. Can they see a picture of your son somewhere and maybe
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Now, my website's michaelcrossland.com. My name is Michael Crossland on all my Instagram and Facebook and all those sort of things. But you just touched on one last thing, and I'd really love to sign off with it. You spoke about cards. You know, someone said to me the other day, geez, you've been dealt with some really rubbish cards in your life. And I remember saying back to them, whilst ever I'm being dealt cards, that means I'm still in the game. And whilst ever I'm still in the game, it's about how I choose to play those cards that allows me to live a remarkable life. And I think that that's so important with everybody listening. You know, don't spend your life complaining about the cards that you have been dealt. Be grateful that you still have cards. Be grateful that you're still in the game and play those cards as effectively as what you can.
absolutely. Absolutely. Michael, thank you so much. Thank you so much for
My
doing
pleasure.
this interview.
No worries. Take care.